Welcome everyone to our second installment of our Career Chat evenings for 2025, where we'll be breaking it down to the basics and putting it all back together like an engineer. My name is Karen, and I'm the Industry Partnerships Manager for Business and Engineering, and I'm joined tonight by Sam Southgate, who is our Co-op Scholar and Alumni Engagement Manager, and some great panelists who I'll introduce a bit later. In terms of some housekeeping, so this session, like all of our sessions this week, will be recorded. The links to all three sessions will be sent to everyone who's registered, to your careers advisors, and will be uploaded to our YouTube over the next few weeks. So don't stress if you miss something. There's also that Q&A box, so please feel free to include questions as we're going through the session. There is also the function to thumbs up. So if there are sort of some questions that you do want answers to, please use that function. Before we go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land we're coming to you tonight from the UNSW Kensington campus. I acknowledge that the Indigenous peoples of Australia and their deep knowledge of engineering, innovation, and sustainable practice over tens of thousands of years. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples who are joining us this evening. So, in choosing a career, you might ask yourself, where do I begin? You're at a point in your life where it's good to start thinking about what you want to do as a career. Taking this first step can be really confusing and or overwhelming and or all the other emotions that go along with that. And I remember these exact same feelings when I was in your shoes. For me, some of the questions were, what do I study? Where do I want to study? What am I good at? How does this translate into a career? And how does this fit into my own, and to be honest, my parents' expectations at the time? First things first, though, like making any decision or action, take a deep breath, shake or dance it out if you need to, and try not to stress. We'll talk through 3 key tips when thinking about careers, and I'll share with you what I've learned from my own journey so far. The beauty of these tips is that they remain relevant no matter what stage you're at in your career journey. The first is to do your research and be a sponge. Figure out what's involved in a particular job, degree, or industry. Talk to people and learn about where they got to where they are and what skills they think are important to succeed. Ask them lots of questions like what they wish they knew when they were in your shoes. When it comes to careers, there's no right or wrong. Developing a career path takes time, and you don't need to have all the answers now. Trust me, sometimes I feel like I still don't. Just remember to do what's best for you at that point in time, and remember, you're not stuck. You can always pivot and change your mind. When it comes to choosing a career destination, there is multiple ways to get there. When you look around at people's careers, there is rarely a linear line of progression. Think about how to best prepare yourself for the next step you're taking, whether that's forwards, sideways, or in a curly loop. Now, you're probably wondering, where do I start, or what are some things I should think about? Remember, this is personal and it will look different for each person. But some things that maybe to get you started could be, what are your skills and talents? What are some things you're naturally good at or that you worked at being good at? There may be other talents that you have, but you just don't know it yet. So be curious and give things a go. What are your values? It's important to understand your values to figure out whether they align with the values of the work you'll be doing or the company you'll be working for. It's always good to do a stock take because these can change as you change. I come back to this often because it's such great advice. But Deanne Stewart, who's the CEO of Aware Super and a Marketing 89 alumnus, said, choose the company, not the role. Another thing to think about is, what are your interests? What do you enjoy or what are you passionate about? Not what your parents, your siblings, your friends, or anyone else is passionate about. You're in the driver's seat, so try and find what interests you. If you're not sure, ask yourself what are things that you're drawn to, or take the time to figure it out. And don't be afraid of trial and error. Figuring out whether something is for you is important, but also figuring out whether something isn't for you is equally important. And the last thing that we've put on this slide, although the list can be endless, is opportunity. So what influences can you draw upon? Who can you talk to get more information? Is there someone in your community where you play sport, volunteer, or work that you can speak to? Did you meet someone who inspired you recently? Did you read something that resonated with you? Be open to the opportunities around you and seek them out. Once you've asked yourself all of these questions, you'll have a lot of information to work with. So, where to next? You need to find out more information. And the best way to do that is continue asking questions. Lean on your network, talk to people about their experiences and the lessons they've learned along the way. And do they have any contacts that could help you with where you want to go? The next thing would be to get some life experience and get involved. Whether that's joining a sports team, volunteering your time for a community group, applying for casual work, get some life experience and gain some skills. While study is important, this single focus won't do you any favours in the long run. There's a big emphasis, not just by the co-op program, but the companies that we work with, on well-rounded people who can balance commitments, have a wide variety of skills, interests, and experiences. It's not just about whether you can do the job well, but who you are as a person. A variety of activities looks great on applications as well, whether that's for the co-op program or for a job, an internship. It's great. It's a great way to learn more about you and will provide a great supply of stories and examples for you to showcase your skills, interests, and learnings. Seek out opportunities and go for them. Don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Be proactive in everything that you do. Search for people you can meet and build connections with. Learn new things to broaden your knowledge or to gain new skills. And most importantly, don't panic. You have lots of time and you don't need to have all the answers now. You are starting this journey early and may gain some advantage as a result. New opportunities might also come up. You might change your mind or direction, and that's okay. It's normal, in fact. Take it from someone who's changed companies and industries. You don't need to make one ultimate career decision. Remember, it's a journey, so enjoy it. If you're set on engineering, the next question might be, why engineering at UNSW? On the screen, you not only get to see the UNSW engineering faculty being ranked #1 in Australia across multiple rankings, but you also get to see some of our engineering scholars and alumni on placement. UNSW has one of Australia's top engineering faculties, with a strong international reputation and industry connections, and is at the forefront of education, research, and innovation. All engineering degree programs have a strong emphasis on design and problem solving. So from day one, you will be involved in hands-on projects, collaborating with other students, and gaining relevant skills to industry. So how can you start deciding if engineering is for you, and if so, which area? There are lots of types of engineering, so it might be difficult for you at this stage to know where to start. I would encourage you to do lots of research on the Co-op and UNSW websites to find a degree that's best suited to your interests, passions, values, and things you want to pursue later in life. There are more areas of engineering at UNSW than what's listed above, which is a quick overview of the specializations we've recently offered co-op scholarships in. While there are lots of different areas of engineering, a key common theme is the focus on design and problem solving. Rather than hearing from me, as someone who's not an engineer, I thought I would share what some of our current third-year scholars have said when I've asked them, what does an engineer do? Charlie Pitt, who is a renewable energy scholar, said, they try and think about things differently to other people and try and solve problems that others can't. Imogen Wills, who's an electric engineering scholar, said, it's a huge question and can depend on the type of engineering. It can include technical project management, managing contracts, and interfacing between different teams. Hitesh Bhutta, who is a mechatronics scholar, said, engineers solve problems. No matter what the task is and whether it's working on pumps or developing an app, engineers figure out what's required and how it can be achieved. Now, moving on to the exciting opportunity to hear from our amazing panelists. First off, we'll hear from Kenneth He, a 2009 photovoltaics alumnus, who's currently the engineering program manager at Tesla for Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. Then you'll hear from Gabi Moss, a 2018 materials science and engineering alumna, who is an operations analyst, quality and assurance and control at Glencore, Australia. And then you get to hear from two final year scholars, Thomas Aquilina, a 2022 mining engineering scholar, and Olivia Lloyd, a 2022 material science and engineering scholar. I will now pass over to Kenneth, and It will also tell me when to change the slides.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, welcome to the Careers Night, and thank you for taking the time out of your evening. Hope you're all staying safe in the weather as well. So a little bit about me. I've been working at Tesla for 9 years. Today's actually my 9-year anniversary date, so glad to be sharing that with you. And I've worked on accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy through the deployment of renewable energy, in particular battery storage products. I've worked on utility scale battery systems in Australia, but more recently I've been focusing on residential and distributed energy systems, as I believe the decentralization and digitization of energy systems is required for us to truly achieve a sustainable energy future. In terms of what I do in a day, I manage a team of amazing engineers working on some of the most innovative technologies in the residential and distributed energy systems space. Whether that's commanding a fleet of batteries installed all over Australia, like a fleet of drones, or completing data analytics tasks to help drive product development or industry policy. I also interface a lot with our sales team, our service team, our policy team. And I think, as Karen highlighted earlier, really a glue within the team to drive change and share a lot of the technical knowledge and expertise we have within Tesla, internally within Tesla, and then also externally with our partners and also our customers that we work with quite often. Thank you, Karen. Slide. So in terms of what I wanted to cover today, I wanted to highlight some of the things that I actually got out of Co-op and why I think it's such a great program. I think Karen highlighted earlier that there are, I guess, things that you need to learn to be good at your job, but there's also a lot of soft skills that you need to interact with other people and drive a solution. There is no I in team. Everything that is achieved in this world today is done as a team. And so really you need to be able to communicate well to be able to kind of infer and drive decision making. So yeah, in terms of the soft skills that I really picked up and really appreciated even to this day is an immediate network of high performing scholars. I think everyone who goes through the Co-op program has gone through the interview process. They've demonstrated a well-roundedness, being able to communicate, but also being academically smart. And so that was a really big key benefit. Even before you start at university, you have a cohort of scholars that you can lean on for advice and go to. And also very good friends as you start university. The other benefit that I had was part of the interview process. I did meet some of the faculty staff that I would eventually learn from. And so getting access to them and getting introductions to them was also very beneficial. It's not as awkward to go up to them and say, hey, I from the Co-op program, I have some questions for you. So again, just getting that early introduction, really helpful. It's more about who you know, not necessarily what you know all the time. Some of the other benefits I had was leadership training. So we did have like a Co-op Scholar Camp. It was really good to learn some key lessons from people who have really good life experiences. And actually some of the lessons I learned from leadership camp I still employ today. So I think I learned quite a lot from that leadership training camp. And I guess the other benefits is also Co-op staff mentoring and support. I think if you're ever having issues, you also have another support network available to you. And I think one of the key benefits for me was also financial freedom. I know a lot of my fellow students had to work to cover expenses, whereas being part of the Co-op program, there was a lot less demand for me to have to work to pay some of the bills. In terms of direct industry benefits, obviously, I guess the core benefit of Co-op is being able to work in industry. Work experience is so key, and it is very difficult to find good work placements in your third and final year to complete your university degree. Co-op kind of takes that away, that the choice that you have to make, and automatically you get entry into workplaces that are looking for top talent. So from there, I obviously worked in a workplace that was very engaging, a lot of relevant work experience, and also helped enhance my industry knowledge. And I think also as part of that co-op program, I got access to resources and an industry sponsor for my final year thesis. I think having that backing from an industry sponsor really helped elevate my final year thesis to where it got, and I did very well, which was and I'm very thankful for that sponsorship for the industry sponsor. So I think from all of this and the excellent program that we had when I moved to Tesla, myself and a fellow co-op alumnus also pushed Tesla to sponsor the co-op program. So we are now an active sponsor of the co-op program. So if you do a placement in the renewable energy or PV space, you will get to work at Tesla in the US. Thank you. And yes, these are the other co-op alumni that currently work at Tesla. So Bonnie Eggleston, he's now Senior Director of our battery program. So he's based out of Palo Alto. He reports directly to Elon. So he's in the upper echelons of Tesla, and he's an ex-co-op scholar. And Alex, he's also an ex-co-op scholar. I actually hired him because we connected during our co-op program together, and I thought he was an amazing engineer and he should be working at Tesla. So he has since joined Tesla. In terms of general advice I have for your career, I think Karen hit some of those notes earlier, but I would say follow and find your passion. Find something that you're really passionate about. And I think once you find that passion, follow it and don't let people tell you not to follow it. Or if you get knocked back, continue to follow it. If you find that passion, you will always do great things. So for me, that's renewable energy and driving that change to sustainable energy. So yeah, I think please talk to your partners, talk to your parents, and try to find that passion within you and follow that dream. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you for spending your ninth year work anniversary with us. And I love to hear our co-op alumni who have the fondest memories of leadership camp, which is something we still do to this day. Alrighty, I'll hand over to Gabi.
Thanks, Karen. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack on this and really put in a plug for material science engineering. I think it's underrated as an engineering degree. So when I was sitting in your shoes, I was looking at what program to actually apply for, and my top two preferences were mechanical engineering or chemical engineering. And as I was about to hit submit, I saw that material science engineering was down in the bottom corner, and I went, oh, let's have a backup. What can it hurt? At the end of the day, that's the one that I interviewed for and the one I ended up accepting. And honestly, it was probably the biggest, I fell in my lap and I'll take it because it's been a great experience since then. So as part of the program, I really went for this, I really went for the co-op program because you do get that industry experience. So I did 2 placements with Rio Tinto Aluminium and 1 placement with Weir Minerals. Going into it, I didn't think I wanted to work in mining at all. I wanted to be lab coat, sort of working in a R&D lab, just finding the really cool future materials that are going to come out. Ended up going to Weir Minerals. Really enjoyed my time in the R&D department. Was working on future alloys. It was very exciting, but I felt like I was missing something in that role. Moving across to Rio Tinto, I was working in a technical team, helping to advise site on how to make aluminium in the most efficient, cost-effective, safe way. And it was really a time when I realized that engineering could both impact people and make people's lives easier, as well as have a technical aspect. So I really enjoyed that technical part of it, but I liked that every project that I worked on had a direct tie to making someone's life on site easier, and also and just improving efficiency while also impacting teams and making value in their lives. So I think that's a part of mining engineering and materials engineering that's often missed. So at the end of that placement, I got offered an industrial thesis with Rio Tinto, looking at copper parts on site and how they actually fail prematurely and how we could fix that. And again, that was an opportunity for me to look at that R&D aspect, also look at the industry links and figure out how can we take this technical knowledge that we have, apply our problem solving and make someone else's life easier. From there, I did take the graduate process engineer job at Rio, which really showed me that even though you do material science and engineering doesn't mean you work as a material science engineer. I was working as a process engineer, which means I was looking at the whole process and how things get made. And I did 6 months in decarbonisation as well, just to try something different. And that's definitely not covered in, you know, the basics of my degree. I was working with a boiler team, trying to get coal out of the boilers and replace it with biofuels. So I got the skills that I needed. I got the people management. I got the problem solving that you can then apply to different projects all around the place. From there, I finished my graduate program and I've since moved to Glencore, where I'm working as an operations analyst in quality control and quality assurance. So I've moved out of aluminium into copper, zinc, and lead manufacturing. So this is covering everything from the mining. So you can see me in the bottom center there, standing in front of my first open cut mine. It looks quite shallow, but I believe when we actually drove down, it was like 18 floors. So we got about halfway down and I was like, we're going back up, it's too deep. In addition to that, trying on lots of different PPE, I get to travel a lot. So I've traveled all up and down the east coast of Australia, into regional Northern Territory on FIFO sites, into regional Queensland. I'm currently at Mount Isa, as well as the South Island of New Zealand. So I've seen a lot of places that I wouldn't have gone to if it hadn't been for these roles. And I just find that I think it's easy to say that, you know, engineering's great, we're very technical people, we're problem solvers. But I think if you're unsure of what you want to do, it's a great basis to leap off into the industry. I have friends that I've graduated with who are now in aeronautical, they're in automotive, they're teachers, they're investment bankers. They've realised that engineering gives them the basis in science, maths, and problem solving that you can really apply anywhere, and a lot of companies value that, even if it's not directly an engineering specific role that you studied. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabi. And thank you to past Gabi for that sliding door moment and putting MSA as a third preference. And I think it's such a great takeaway around making someone's life easier. I'll now pass over to Tom to chat through his journey so far.
Hello, everyone. Right, so I'm a fourth year mining engineering student. And yeah, I graduated from Parramatta Marist Brothers in 2021. And sort of while I was in year 11 and year 12, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I was sort of getting the feeling that I didn't really want to spend the rest of my days working in an office 24/7. So that sort of put me down the engineering path. And I also like the idea of traveling for work. So sort of naturally, I fell into the mining engineering stream. And I've really enjoyed it. Sort of since then, I've become passionate about some of the industry's problems. For me, I like looking at safety problems, you know, sort of ground stability, ventilation, or spatial analysis, you know, to prevent large vehicles colliding with very small vehicles. Because I think these are the sort of problems which you can approach from that very technical engineering lens. And as sort of Kenneth mentioned before, I've actually been pretty lucky because I've also been able to complete an undergraduate thesis on safety with the industry partner that I was with for both my placements at Bengala. Beyond that, I've also found it really interesting how an industry which has typically lagged in sort of those sustainable practices has sort of been pushed into the modern day, sometimes kicking and screaming, but sometimes pretty willingly, and how sort of the engineering stream is behind developing those technologies which are behind, which, you know, sort of significantly reduce the environmental and social impact that sort of mining can have, you know, which is sort of traditionally a pretty degrading industry. So I'm pretty unique in the co-op stream in that I did both of my placements at the same operation, an open cut coal mine in the Hunter Valley called Bengala. And sort of because of that, I tried to structure my very first placement, which was with the short-term planning team, as a bit of a fly on the wall, sort of just be quiet, look at what everyone's doing and sort of try and understand what's going on. But they didn't let me do that. And instead I was sort of propelled into a rotation of roles, you know, sort of looking at developing designs from numerous CAD softwares whether that be waste dumps, excavation models, or drill and blast patterns. I did that, and I was pretty happy with it, but I sort of confided in my superintendent about halfway through, and I said, look, I'm not sure I understand all the fundamentals behind the work that I'm doing. And after I told him that, the next day I came in at 5:30, and then on for the next 10 weeks, I was given the opportunity to work in the field, where I was sort of spending time driving trucks, shot firing, which is blowing stuff up, and even the opportunity to sit and operate on some of the largest excavators that have ever been built. And it was sort of during this time that I spent in the field instead of as a hardcore engineer, where I learned some of the really important skills that I think any engineer going into the industry really needs to know and remember. I think the first is safety. When you work in the shoes of the people that you're sort of giving plans to, you realize where things can go wrong, but you also realize sort of the burden and ultimate responsibility that engineers have. And also just communication. You're not just going to be talking to sort of technical staff when you're an engineer, but also to operators and a bunch of people who haven't really been looking at what you've been looking at for the past, week or month. So just sort of those skills are really important to remember. And I think I developed those sort of while I was on placement. So yeah, that ended my first 20-week placement. And then a year later, I went back for another 20 weeks. And when I went back, that turns out they had an opening for a dragline engineer, which for those of you who don't know is basically this huge 6,000-ton machine that just chews up dirt. And they were struggling to fill that role because those machines are pretty few in New South Wales. But fortunately, I put my hand up for the role, and I was actually given a chance to act in that role. And basically what I was doing, I was modelling the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly excavations for, I'm pretty sure, is the largest mobile machine in New South Wales at the moment. And like my first placement, I found sort of this critical importance in sitting on the machine and learning its intricacies before I sat in the engineering seat. So definitely sort of to anyone looking to go into engineering, I can't stress enough how important it is to sort of get out in the field sort of before you do all that engineering work. But it was also in this role where I realized how many engineering streams come together sort of in the wider system, that not just, for example, in the mining industry, but yeah, just sort of producing a final product. Like, for example, I was, working with mechanical engineers, who wouldn't hesitate to tell me that my plans were stressing the machine or to spring me with a surprise maintenance day, or sort of environmental engineers, who would shut the machine down when it got too dusty, or geotechnical engineers, who made sure that the 6,500-ton machine that I was working with wasn't going to slump and fall into the open pit and cost hundreds of millions of dollars to fix. And yeah, that sort of concluded my 44 weeks on placement. Made a lot of good friends and a lot of good industry connections. And now I'm in the process of looking for a graduate role as a mining engineer. One thing sort of I can say, it's good to not just be stuck in that engineering role. I haven't just sort of gotten offers from engineering places. I've also gotten offers from consultancies like Partners in Performance. But sort of I evaluated my offers, and I think I realised that I sort of want to stick in that traditional mining engineering role. So yeah, currently negotiating offers with companies like Matt Copper, BHP, AIC Mines, also Bengala and Newmont. But I sort of thought to myself that I wanted to go underground and work in an underground mine instead, because I think it offers sort of a whole new set of challenges that I'm pretty prepared to sort of sink my teeth into. And yeah, looking at going into a smaller operation, because from sort of my experience on placement, I found that I like the idea of sort of that tailored career development, which some smaller operations can offer. One advice I'd also give to everyone is don't underestimate the power of a mentor throughout your entire degree. You sort of go from year 12 into first year reunion, kind of think you're a little bit invincible and that you don't really need the help. But yeah, you quickly realize that you probably do want someone to speak to about not only navigating the engineering work that you're doing, but also just your life in general. So through the Co-op School, I met a mentor called Penny Oshis, who I sort of talked to for my first 2 years. And then I met another guy called Peter Knight, and yeah, pretty instrumental in sort of getting me through the entire degree and finally finding a graduate job. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to see. I think one of the best things about my role is getting to see students come through the program over the 4 or 5 years that they're with us. It's been awesome to see your growth. And I kind of love that safety focus, which is so important in any job, but even more so in an engineering space. I'll now pass over to Olivia.
Thank you, Karen. And hello, everyone. So I am Olivia. I grew up in Canberra and I was in your position about 5 or 6 years ago in year 11 and 12, I was thinking, what do I want to do at uni? Where do I want to go? I really had no idea. And to be honest, I didn't really have a passion. And so if you're sitting there not having this passion or this light that's drawing you somewhere, that's okay. I didn't. You kind of just figure it out as you go, and that's completely fine. What I did know is that I enjoyed science and maths, and I was good at that. And I was atrocious at art and English. And so I kind of got propelled down the STEM end of things. I was considering actuarial studies, maybe pure science, pure maths, as I'm sure some of you are. But I decided I wanted to do engineering when I realized I wanted to put my research into real life situations and see things tangibly come together in front of me. And that is definitely what has happened with my engineering degree. So I ended up choosing material science and engineering, and very similar to Gabi, I had that down as my third option in my co-op application. Scandalous, but I think my first two were chemical and mechanical. So honestly, exact same as Gabi. But I recommend you take a good look through UNSW's website, and they have all of the information there for you. All the different engineering streams have a very nice little pocket of information and future career opportunities for each degree, which I found really helpful. And that's kind of how I based my decision. Ultimately, though, UNSW is a really good uni for engineering, and I don't think you can make a wrong choice, to be honest. But anyway, so I ended up doing material science and engineering, which was really fun. It's looking at polymers, ceramics, and metals. I ended up doing most of my work around polymers, which actually was the part of my high school science journey that I did the worst in. I was actually so bad. My teacher was a bit concerned for me. But anyway, I worked with plastics for the last 4 years and really enjoyed it. So I chose material science and engineering, and then about 2 years into my uni, I did my first placement at Weir Minerals, which is also where Gabi worked. And I was a laboratory assistant there, so working with looking at their mining equipment, the different metals and rubbers that go and line the different equipment, and how we can make them last longer in mines and on site. That was really good. I was able to do their global testing of their rubber, which was really cool. They sent me rubber from all over around the world, and I got to do that global quality testing, which was fun. Then my second placement was at BlueScope Steel in Wollongong. So I moved to Wollongong for 6 months at the start of last year, which was lovely. I love Wollongong. And I was working with their ColourBond steel stream, looking with polymer science, so that coating on that steel, how we can get it to last longer, resist rust, resist scratching, things like that. That was really fun. I loved the team I worked with down there, and yeah, it was really cool to look more specifically into polymers and very specific changes within chemicals. That's what I was doing there. And then the second half of last year, I moved up to Brisbane to Rio Tinto, and I met Gabi there. She was great, made it a lot less scary. And I was a process improvement intern. I just kind of worked on their aluminium team, and I actually was able to do a whole bunch of random jobs there, which was fun. So kind of like what Tom was saying, they do, if you have a good, mentor or boss at these workplaces, they get you to do a whole bunch of different work in different places. And I really enjoyed that about Rio. I actually got to use some rusty Python skills to do some work for their smelting sites and automate some processes, which was really, really fun. And then looking maybe at areas for reduction in emissions with their site as well, using coding skills that I'd gotten from uni. But that was really fun. So that was last year. And now this year I'm doing my thesis, material science and engineering thesis with Pramod Koshi, who is on the panel as well. Thanks, Koshi. And I actually also got the opportunity to do an industry thesis. So I think a few people have said industry thesis tonight, but essentially it's where there is an optional 5th year scholarship if potentially one of the companies you've been working for are interested in doing another project with you for the year, they can sponsor that 5th year. And so I'm actually working with BlueScope again in the same team that I was last year, continuing on the same sort of research that we were doing last year. And it's been really good to be able to continue that through, use UNSW's equipment to help them with their research goals, and it all worked together really nicely. And then looking to the future, I think I sort of credit to what everyone else has said. Engineering doesn't just put you in a box to be an engineer for the rest of your life. If you want to do that, that's great. I thought I did too. But I've actually taken a job at McKinsey & Company, which is a consulting company. If you don't know what consulting is, that's fine. I didn't until about a year ago, but essentially I'll be working with lots of different businesses and diverse teams and pottering around different jobs, and I'll get a bit more of a glimpse into the more financial side of the world and business side of the world, which is great. And I really do credit that job offer to all of the diverse experience that I had through co-op and the problem-solving mindset that I got through engineering at UNSW. But if any of you have any questions and you don't, want to reach out tonight, feel free to just pop me a message at any time, and I'd be happy to offer any advice I can give. But thanks.
Thanks, Olivia. I love how you kind of brushed over that process improvement intern. If I remember correctly, your decision tree workflow was insane, and the impact of your work was invaluable. So I'll throw in a shout out to Olivia there. Now, if my slides want to change, great. So while we're talking about careers, engineering, and UNSW more broadly, we are the co-op program. So time for a quick sales pitch and overview of the program. We are looking for high achieving and potential well-rounded students who are passionate about pursuing a career in a particular area or industry. In terms of what we can offer you, so students get up to 18 months worth of industry experience at 3 companies before graduation. There's lots of networking and mentoring with current scholars, co-op alumni, and sponsor representatives. And there's a big focus on leadership and professional development training to help you prepare not only for placements, but your career and beyond. And finally, financial support of $21,600 per year over 4 years, with the chance, like Olivia mentioned and a few others, to be awarded a 5th year thesis scholarship for engineering and science students. For students who are specifically interested in mining engineering, some of the details are a little different, so I do recommend going onto our website to find out more. And most importantly, co-op scholars also have a lot of fun along the way. So there are a lot of social gatherings, a lot of friendships and networks that extend across the university. And as our alumni often tell us, these friendships last a lifetime. If you would like to apply, applications close on the 30th of September 2025. If you're on the fence, hopefully we've convinced you otherwise tonight, but we still recommend you apply because you never know what will end up happening. Please check out our website for more information, key dates, how to apply, and FAQs. And now we'll open up to Q&A with our panelists. So please pop your questions into the Q&A box. We'll try and get through as many as we can, upvote. And then for co-op specific questions, I recommend going onto our website and reading our FAQs, which are FAQs for a reason. But I do have Sam who's helping moderate some of the questions. So between us, we'll try and get through as many as we can.
Wonderful, thank you. We've actually got a direct question for Olivia first up. So we've got a question asking if you're liking the finance/business side more of your material science/engineering work more, or potential experience that you've had so far. They're currently in a similar situation, and was wondering when you're in high school, just wanting to understand how you felt or understood that direction that you, I guess, were going into, especially considering maybe the graduate offer that you're going off into as well.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how it works now with double degrees. I think that's sort of maybe changed since I started, but I applied for a lot of different places through UAC and everything, as I'm sure you will all be doing. I did apply for some double degrees with business or international relations and engineering at different places, but ultimately getting I think the work experience that you get through co-op or just through UNSW digging for those placements yourself, it does help with that understanding of business because you're thrown into one and you are working in one and you can kind of see how it's all working and you get to work with different people in different teams. So that in itself is really helpful. I also, as sort of a co-op side note to that, when I got that co-op offer, I instantly was obviously sold and ecstatic because I knew that the work experience that I would be getting was unparalleled to what I would otherwise, and potentially the insights that I would be getting if I did a double degree of engineering in business or whatever. And I still believe that strongly. And also engineering, I just going through the graduate recruitment process in the last 6 months, it was a whirlwind and I got to see all of my friends go through it at the same time as me, a lot of whom were engineers. And I saw so many engineers get business related jobs or finance related jobs. And I think co-op helped. I think joining societies for people that didn't do a co-op scholarship really helped. Doing internships and work experience all just adds up to kind of who you are, and businesses will hire you, hopefully, who you are, the experience you've had, what your clear interests are. And if you get that across, I didn't find it to be a barrier that I just had an engineering degree rather than a double degree. And yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Great. Thanks, Olivia. I might just quickly jump in just in case we do get any questions about double degrees. So it is something that we know that a lot of students kind of want breadth in their studies. So in order to be successful for a co-op scholarship, you do need to enter in through the single degree. We do have some double degree options. I know some of our engineering students who are doing double degrees, but it's through an approval process. So that's, after your first year or maybe your second year, because it has to be after your first placement. And sometimes we have to chat to the sponsors, but it is possible. It's just, it kind of depends on a case-by-case basis. It also depends on if that double exists. But also we've had students who, apply for the program, say, oh, I really want to do a double, get through university, do their first placement, and they're like, actually, I don't think I need to, which is sort of to Olivia's point as well. While Sam's looking for the next question, I do see sort of that first one at the top, which is how competitive are the scholarships? How many sponsors or scholarships are given each year in the area of engineering, in the program every year? I'm sorry, I have a very vague response, but it just depends year on year. And I'd say, across all of our program streams, it's probably anywhere like a good year is 75 to 85, but we get, hundreds of applications. I think maybe change your viewpoint around, try not to play the game of numbers, but if you're actually interested, if you actually want the industry experience and kind of all the other benefits that come with the program, then apply. And then sort of go through that process.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Karen. I might jump into the next question, which I might just target to any one of the panelists there. I've got a question asking, is co-op super busy? And if so, how did you manage that work-life balance? Maybe Thomas, if you want to have a crack at that one.
It's probably a bit different for me because with the mining stream, you sort of just take your third trimester off and go sort of all the way to the start of trimester one, and then you sort of rinse and repeat that a second year. But during the third trimester, I still did have to take some courses online. I think like co-op being busy, I think really depends for everyone. I found it pretty manageable. I had really good support from the people at work that I was working with. They were really happy to help me with any of the work that I was doing at home. Like I'd go out with them sort of afterwards. So I think I was able to maintain a pretty good sort of university life balance, but I think it's pretty degree dependent. Obviously, some degrees are harder than others, and just sort of depending on the nature of the work, where you're working and how long you're doing that work for. I think it could be a struggle, but if you've got the chance to move regionally, I definitely recommend it. It's a different life, and definitely don't regret it, and it's something I want to do in the future.
Cool. Thanks for that, Thomas. Anything further to add from the other panelists?
Yeah, I think I'd like to add, I lived in college my first year, so I still had that full college experience, had time to fully immerse myself in that side of things as well. Having the scholarship did help with that because it meant that I could do a much lighter part-time workload rather than having to probably work 1 or 2 days a week like a lot of my friends had to. And engineering is just a heavier workload in general than if you were doing a straight business or media or something else like that. So you have to factor that in a little bit as well. But I found that with co-op, if anything, it made it easier to have that social life because it took off one cost of living pressure that would otherwise have been there.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Gabi. Might move on to the next question, which I think all of us might have a bit of a bite of the apple on this one, but we've got a question asking, what do you think made your application stand out when you were submitting it for co-op?
I'm happy to start. I think just be honest and sort of show your passion. I think that's funny. When I was on my second placement, the guy who sort of was in that co-op interview actually came up to me and sort of spoke about it. And sort of that's what he said. He's always used to distinguish sort of between people. He looks for sort of that passion and honesty. You know, like sort of a recognition that this is what you know, this is what you don't know, but this is what you sort of want to be. And yeah, just show that passion in your interview.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think if I were to add anything, people that work in the co-op office, like Sam and Karen, they do not expect a 30-year-old's resume from an 18-year-old. And I think I forgot that during the application because it's like, oh, what can I even put down? Like, there are a lot of questions, but they're trying to milk some interesting facts out of you or some interesting passions or, you know, interests. And so even the most random things that you've done in your life, if you can, you know, if you actually learnt something from it and learnt something valuable, whether that was a leadership skill or whatnot, like I coached a really mediocre water polo team for a tournament, but I did learn some things for it. So I was able to use that in the application. And so just back yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, going off what Thomas said, I think like my passion for engineering, like I think even before I wanted to do engineering, I think everyone in my family knew I was going to become an engineer. I used to take things apart, put them back together again just for fun. And I think that is, yeah, find your passion and kind of share the stories around what you like to do. I think if you do that honestly, truthfully, and with passion, you'll find the right people and the right role for you, or the right industry for you as well. So yeah, that's I think what helped me stand out.
Thanks, Kenneth. And maybe I'll just add from a co-op office perspective, and when I'm looking at applications, it's kind of all of those things, excuse me, that have been said around, you know, the passion for engineering, but that reflection and learning piece, like what did you take away from that experience? But also something that came up in yesterday's session with business was just being your authentic self. And a piece of advice that came through from a scholar around the interviews was be normal. So be yourself, be a good human, and have that kind of shine through your application or interview.
I think to add to that, I think a lot of applicants can get hung up on whether or not the circumstance or the experience is prestigious enough to be warranted to put on the application there, but that's certainly not the case. It's referring back to Olivia's comment there and Thomas's and the whole panel, basically. It's about demonstrating that passion, that resilience, but also that reflection piece and your ability to be able to learn and grow from those examples. Heck, it could even be a mistake that you list on your application if you were able to reflect and grow from that the most, you know, thinking about that rather than the level of prestige that activity might seem to have tied to it.
Perfect. Well, you're looking through questions, Sam. So there's one here around, are there any adjustment factors such as HSC Plus and EAPL considered for entry into the co-op program? So our ATAR requirement is 96 or entry into the program. So for actuarial studies, it's a bit different. But for us, we only look at your raw ATAR mark plus EAS. I'm not sure about EAPL, but I'm assuming they're similar, but just double check. We also do have gateway and Indigenous flexibility pathways. So have a look on our website. There's more information about that as well. I might also jump up to the question just above that, which is if the applications close in September, how do we include our HSC or IB score? So I think based off the application, you'll put in sort of your trial or your assessment results sort of as at the time. In terms of a scholarship offer, when you have a conditional offer, it's conditional on you sort of meeting that ATAR requirement and having a scholarship offer. So just because IB scores come out later than HSC doesn't mean we sort of say, well, too bad, too sad. So if you do have a conditional offer, that offer stays in place until your IB results come out and we can confirm that. While I'm on a roll, I might just keep working up. So the next one is around why is the co-op program not available for other engineering areas such as aerospace and biomedical engineering? So this kind of just depends on the sponsor companies that are available. So for us in engineering, sometimes streams are available one year and they might not be the next year. It sort of just depends. We know that there are certain aspects of engineering that students are really interested in. So civil engineering, aerospace, biomedical, quantum, that kind of sits in my bucket or the team's bucket in terms of trying to get those up and running. So it's not possible at the moment. Take a look at our website to see what programs are, but there could be other ways to sort of explore those specialties while you're at uni. Oh, I might just also add, I think Pramod Koshi, who's our fabulous academic coordinator for material science should be, I can't see in my sort of view, but should still be on the call. So if you did have any specific questions for him from an academic perspective, then please also send that through. I might take a breath and throw back to Sam.
I think we got a couple of questions regarding preferences, I guess, coming through there. So you do get the opportunity to be able to list 3 preferences on your application, and we do take all of those preferences seriously, reflecting back to Olivia and Gabby's reference of choosing it as a 3rd preference there. We do equally apply that weight in your application coming through there. And yeah, so make sure that you're considering each of those different options, the list of the co-op programs that are available to you. I do see a couple of questions about aerospace engineering, I think, being an option that linked to the co-op program. So basically, because each of the programs are sponsored by a company, industry sponsors coming through there, it is dependent on those sponsorships of those different programs, but the program itself also has to exist within the university combined with co-op in that sense. So it's currently not an option. That's not to say that it won't be an option in the future, but you can refer to our website for all of the current programs listed there.
Perfect. I might also just add, if you are putting multiple preferences, try and reflect, I guess, your passion for those areas throughout your whole application. There's no point sort of putting, business or, finance in your application and not mentioning it once. But like Sam said, we do assess your application across all 3 preferences, and we have students who put 1, who put 2, or who put all 3. I might also jump to that first question. So are there any opportunities to do overseas exchange in uni whilst doing the co-op program? Yes, it is stream dependent, but I have had students go on exchange. I didn't go on exchange personally, but I think it's a great opportunity to get outside your comfort zone, be in a new environment. There is a process, at UNSW to do exchange, but for us, the priority is making sure that you commit to your placements. The timings are quite structured, so working around that as well. And then the second question as part of that response was, what are the main differences with actuarial study placements in co-op compared to engineering, so particularly mechanical? I think different kind of problem solving in terms of our actuarial sponsors. So if you get a chance, have a look at our business recording that should be up in a few weeks. I think that's more around your machine learning, your modeling. Our sponsors are kind of more based around consulting, insurance, government, corporate. In terms of our mechanical engineering or engineering in general, it is quite sort of site or plant based. You're kind of working like on the ground with machinery, problem solving. So I think it's kind of still problem solving, just a little bit different. But I'm not an actuary or an engineer, so you might have to do a bit of extra research on that one.
We have a question as well asking how many interstate and international students typically enroll or apply into the program. So I remember for interview briefing day and interview day last year, we had individuals flying over from Hong Kong, Singapore, I think, New Zealand was in there, just certainly individuals from Queensland, Western Australia. Not sure if we got anyone from Adelaide coming over last year, but we do get many different individuals across, not just Australia, but across the world applying for the program there.
Perfect. And then just in terms of, just to clarify on that international students bit, check out our website for the eligibility criteria. So it is for Australian citizens and PR. So what Sam's referring to is just, and New Zealand citizens and some other sort of visa type holders. There's a document that will tell you all the right things, but just in terms of clarifying that little bit.
We do have a question about how long the placements usually last. I think just as a quick answer to that, they can vary depending on the program stream. If we're talking engineering specific, they are a bit more common across those program streams, although mining is a little bit different in that respect. So what I would encourage you to do is if you go to the UNSW Co-op website and go to each of the different program pages, then it'll have a list, a document down the bottom for you to have a look at when those timings are and the length of those as well. So you can refer to them there.
I think there's a question there around co-op sponsors predominantly looking like to be mining companies. That's not the case. So there are a huge range of sponsors. Again, I know we've repeated this many times, but go onto our website and check out our sponsors in the engineering space. You know, off the top of my head, trying to think under pressure. You know, we have your ResMeds, your Provector, your Lion Tui's Brewery. Oh dear, Honeywell, you know, some of these Iberdrola, Gentari, 5B, so a lot of companies across a range of different industries who sponsor the program. Sydney Water, now I'm just rattling off companies, but take a look at our website for sort of that full list. Okay, there's another question here around pursuing, so if I apply for a scholarship and I want to pursue a PhD, oh, nope, it's disappeared, let's go. Then do we need to repay the scholarship amount or will they allow to do the PhD? So coming into the program, it is a 4-year commitment, 4-year scholarship commitment, and then it does add an extra year to a standard engineering degree. Mining engineering, a little different, 4 years. Again, check our website. But it is that whole commitment. You know, I think at this point it's having a hard think about, is this really what you want to do? And sort of, is this something that you're committed to doing? We say at our interview briefing day, if you're just thinking about the money, that's not good enough because we will ask a lot of you sort of throughout the program, but you can still finish your 4 or 5 year co-op program and go on to do a PhD. So from a student perspective, there's no obligation to work at a sponsor company. And from a sponsor's perspective, there's no obligation to offer you employment. So I have seen students who have finished the program and gone off and taken a gap year and traveled. I've seen students who have decided to continue their studies. So whether that's a PhD, you know, a master's, whatever that is, that's kind of up to you once you've successfully completed the program. Oh, sorry, Sam, you go. I'll take a breath.
No, all good. I think we just might address the question that's come through the chat most recently there. So if I apply through co-op, can I still apply normally too? So just to make it crystal clear that it is a separate application process that you're going through for co-op, you will still need to go through the standard application process for applying to a standard UNSW degree. So those two don't sync up. It is separate through our portal there. So please don't expect an application through the co-op portal to link through to the admissions team for UNSW there. So just making sure it's very separate. For those that are also applying for alternative scholarships that the university also offers, it is a separate application process to ours as well. So just making sure that you're crossing all those I's and those T's in the different portals that you need to submit through.
Perfect. I might just answer the question. So is it harder to get in through the Gateway program for co-op compared to the mainstream application? So for Gateway students, you go through the same process. So it's through that application, interview, selection process. There's just that flexibility pathway of a slightly reduced ATAR. So that's at least 90, and we have up to 4 spots. But I will say we do have some Gateway students in the program who've come through the program, on their own without that pathway. I think there was another question about I'm interested in mechatronics engineering, but this isn't a co-op option. What should I pick as my preferences for co-op instead? So co-op program has been running for 37 years and our systems have been running for a long time. So mechatronics isn't kind of a option in the drop down, but it is possible. We do have some mechatronics sponsorship at the moment. So put in mechanical. And maybe put throughout your application that you are interested in sort of that mechatronics space. It may be the case that we have just mechanical engineering scholarships or mechatronics scholarship or a mix, but that's something that will sort of be discussed with you as part of that interview and offer process.
Great. There's also a question about pathway to do a master's with a similar funding. So just to clarify, I guess that commitment of that 4-year scholarship and then an additional year for engineering, which may have a sponsorship opportunity from an industry partner, that funding basically ceases once your program finishes. So if you were to go off and do a master's program, then there wouldn't be a scholarship available through the co-op program.
There's that top question as well. So are some industry co-op programs more competitive than others? If so, which ones? I would say they're all competitive. It kind of just, again, depends year on year in terms of the number of scholarships, the number of applications. But I kind of go back to that same answer of don't try and play the numbers games. It's about your passion. It's about where you see yourself being and what you want to study. Because I think that's what drives it and that's what makes your application stand out. But yes, I hope that answers that one.
We just got another question about preferences come through. So can you apply for 2 different types of co-op scholarships and does it affect your chances? So yes, you can elect up to 3. You can just list one if you're only interested in one of those. And we apply the same weight across those 3 preferences that you've submitted. So it's not like we are going to take your 3rd preference any less seriously than your 1st preference. So I hope that clarifies.
Frantically scrolling through the questions just to make sure we answer everything. There's the question there, thank you, Roy, around can the Scientia scholarship and co-op scholarship be added together? So I think there are certain terms, and I don't know off the top of my head, but from a co-op perspective, again, our priority is for you to make sure that you can meet the terms and conditions of your co-op scholarship. For us, as long as you do that, then we don't have any issues with you holding additional scholarships. I think it's the Scientia, and I think off the top of my head, like the AAA scholarship that you can, but there might just be some terms and conditions around that. So for us, that's fine. Just remember that, like Sam said, it's a different process, an application, but also they might sort of the other side might have restrictions. So that's just something that you might just have to double check.
Cool. And maybe just following up on the question just posted into the chat. So do you have to apply for the exact same course through co-op and the mainstream way of applying? So if you wanted to do the aerospace engineering, so you do not have to apply for the same exact course through UNSW that you're applying through co-op. When it does get around to the time of interview day and receiving some shortlisted or conditional offers, for example, we'll give you a lot of guidance around the UAC preferences that need to be listed when we get around to that point. But you can still apply for different degree path, like different degrees compared to what co-op is offered there.
And I might just add, Sam, so as part of your co-op application, you do have to put your top 5 UAC preferences. So co-op application, UAC process, 2 different things. So, you get to choose how you put your UAC preferences. But like Sam said, once we get to that sort of offer stage, there is a process to make sure that you are given an offer into that degree. If you're unsure about the UAC codes, again, our website has a document with all of that information as well. There's also a question from Amelia around what is the distribution of women and men in the co-op program. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but it is something that we do sort of focus on and try and make sure it's as evenly distributed as possible, whilst also making sure that, the best candidates are coming through the program. But, I think regardless of gender, it is, I think, one of the benefits of it is that it's such a diverse group of students. We have students who move interstate, students who come from overseas, students from rural, regional, who come from, gateway schools, Indigenous. And so I think that diverse nature of the program and the students just makes it, a great experience for all the students, and that network of not just the students coming through, but the alumni just adds to that as well. For anyone who's joining late, like that last question that's just popped through, so the recording will be provided. It'll be sent to all of those who've registered, careers advisors, and will be uploaded to our YouTube as well. I'm just conscious of time, so maybe we can just try and get through these last 3 ones. We are kicking goals tonight with these questions. As more come through, that's great. So if you don't get through the Co-op Gateway pathway, will you still be considered in the mainstream pool where you mentioned? So in terms of that, you still go through the same application process. For students who do meet that gateway pathway, it's just that reduced ATAR. So we have students in Gateway who still get the 96, but then they're up to those 4 spots if you are sort of given a conditional offer and meet that criteria. Are there any sponsors for automotive industries for a mechanical engineering co-op? Pressure and off the top of my head, no. It is something that we would love to see. We get a lot of applications from students who, Red Bull, F1, all of those kind of cool companies. Our existing sponsors are still cool, but not so much in that specific automotive industry space. Again, in my bucket of things to do and try and get on board with the team. Next question is, can the reference be from the student's year level coordinator? I think that's referring to the SAP, so the student assessment page. So yes, that should be fine. Just please read the instructions just to make sure that, all the processes that need to happen. And then is UAC similar to VTAC? I'm personally not sure, but I would assume so. But yes, it is possible for interstate students to register. So we do have students from interstate who come and apply. But yeah, and then another question that's just popped through, I'm going to need a breath in a second, is so for double degree, if your sponsor agrees to allow for the double degree, will that be sponsored too? So no. So for our sponsorship and scholarship, it's that 4-year commitment. If you do a double degree, you don't get that additional funding for that additional year, unless it's kind of in that 5th year thesis bit. For students who do a double degree with engineering, you're already at university for 5 years, or 4, mining engineering. I'm always looking at Tom to remind me of that. But for us, it's, we know that you're at university for such a long time already. So if you are looking to do a double, it also takes a lot of pre-planning, pre-communication, and just trying to make sure that you do, fit all of that extra study within that 5-year or 5-year and a bit time frame.
And then we've just had another question come through from Emmy. Will everyone have an interview? So no. I think last year we had about 1,000 applications that we received, and I believe it was around the 320 mark that came through for interview day. Different batches and numbers of students coming through for different program streams based on the size of the projected sponsorships and all the rest. But yeah, no, not everyone will get an interview.
I am conscious of timing, so I might just chuck through this last question around how hard is it to get extra funding for a 5th year honours thesis. You're going to get sick of me to say it depends, but it is something that is, our current sponsors are aware of. There are benefits for everyone, but you have to drive that process yourself, obviously with guidance from us. But it's just, there are sometimes things that might be outside of your control, budget, timing, projects, all of that. So it's just for you to drive that process. And I've seen anywhere between, I think it's 1 and 3, if not, I think we had 5 one year. So it just depends. Oh, and just snuck in a last question. It's still 7:10. So is there time for extracurricular activities like music? I think this kind of also comes back to the question around, is co-op busy? So you are at university, you are doing a full-time load when you're not on placement, and then placement is, business hours. So there is a lot going on. It's a lot to juggle. We have students who are involved in a whole range of extracurricular activities. We had a student who competed competitively in windsurfing. We have students who do volunteering overseas. We have students who are part of orchestras and do music. And so there's a whole range of opportunities, whether that's societies through university or, lots of other, or, students who run their own businesses as well. I think what it comes back down to are your priorities, but also the fact, and we tell this to students throughout the 4 or 5 years, that there are only 24 hours in a day. So being able to balance all of that and prioritize is something that sits with you to sort of manage. I think we've covered most, if not all of it. So I am conscious of time, but thank you to everyone. Oh, I do have a thank you slide, so let's move to that one. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope this has been helpful in navigating your next step. A reminder that we will send everyone who's registered a link to the recordings, and they will also be uploaded to YouTube. Again, check our website, check out our FAQs. And if you have any extra questions after you've looked at them and it hasn't been answered, then just feel free to reach out to us. And if you don't already, please follow us on social media. Especially Instagram. This is where we showcase our scholar experiences and achievements, provide tips on applications, and highlight our co-op events.